Welcome to the M1 Fitness Podcast. I'm your host, Marcus Sadu, and today we're chatting all about fat. So the reason I wanted to put this episode together is because there's been a serious trend around the demonization of sugar and or carbs and a real push for eating quote-unquote healthy fats. Now, I'm all for minimizing processed sugar intake and eating nutrient-dense fat sources, but I keep seeing this over and over in the clients that I work with where they're drastically underestimating the amount of fat that they're eating and then therefore underestimating the caloric burden that that's putting on their bodies. So I want to explain this all further. First off, calories. These are how we measure the amount of energy that's in different foods. And the way we think about calories are via proteins, carbs, and fats. These three categories together are called macronutrients. So the three macronutrients that make up calories we eat are protein, carbohydrates, and fat. Now, protein has 4 calories per gram, carbs also have 4 calories per gram, and fat clocks in at 9 calories per gram. So a gram of fat contains just over double the amount of calories that a gram of protein or carbs does. So for most people, protein is the most filling or satiating macronutrient per unit calorie, followed by carbs, and lastly, we've got fats. Some people actually find fat really satiating, but I'm not sure that it's the fat itself that they're finding filling or how a lower carb approach manages their funky blood sugar, and therefore they feel less hungry throughout the day, but that's a topic for another day. So this means that 200 calories worth of protein is going to be more filling than 200 calories of carbs and 200 calories of fats. It also means that 200 calories worth of carbs is going to be more filling than 200 calories worth of fats. Now, what does 200 calories look like of each of these foods in the real world? So 200 calories of protein is about a medium-sized chicken breast. 200 calories of carbs is about 1 cup of cooked rice. 200 calories of fat is 2 tablespoons of peanut butter, and that's actual tablespoons, so 30 grams. Not, I throw my spoon in the jar and see how much peanut butter I can fit on it, and then maybe I take a little extra scoop after 2 kind of tablespoons. So as you can see, you're going to get a lot more food volume from the chicken breast and the rice versus the peanut butter, because remember, fats have more than double the amount of calories per gram. This food volume concept is one of the reasons why it's so easy to overdo our fat intake. So for example, cooking oils, nuts, nut butters, seeds, cheese, dressings, sauces, all of these foods don't take up much room on your plate at all. However, they're very calorie dense versus something like a medium-sized chicken breast or a cup of rice. That takes up a bunch of room on your plate, so it's much easier to visualize how much of it you're actually taking in, relatively speaking. For example, if you have 2 cups of steamed veggies on your plate and you add 2 tablespoons of olive oil to them, you can't actually really even tell visually that you added calories other than how the food tastes for the most part. And 2 tablespoons of olive oil has about 250 calories. But if you add a cup of cooked rice to your plate, you see that rice. There's a lot of food volume there. So just purely from a visual standpoint, it's easier to overlook the calories and fats, specifically oils, than it is in protein or carbohydrate foods. Now let's get specific. I want to take you through a regular sample day's worth of eating, and we'll calculate up how much protein, carbohydrates, and fats are in all of the food. So let's call this person Sasha because that's my sister's name and she's one of my favorite people. So breakfast. Sasha is having 2 eggs, 2 slices of whole wheat toast, and a cup of coffee. Now on the surface, we've got 12 grams of protein in the eggs and say 5 grams in the bread for a total of 17 grams of protein. Carbohydrates wise, we've got about 25 grams in the 2 slices of whole wheat bread, and then fats, we've got 5 grams per egg, so 10 grams total from the eggs, and then likely a couple grams in each slice of the bread as well. So we'll say 14 grams of fat in all. So in total, this meal has 17 grams of protein, 25 grams of carbs, and 14 grams of fat. That is a total of 294 calories. But this is where it becomes really easy to overlook added fats, because how is Sasha cooking the eggs? Maybe she throws some oil down in the pan and she eyeballs it. It's going to be at least a tablespoon of oil, and that's being super conservative, which adds 14 grams of fat. Then What's she putting on her toast? A couple tablespoons of butter, most likely. That's another 24 grams of fat. Now, is she drinking her coffee black or is she adding cream? Again, being conservative, let's say she adds 3 tablespoons of cream, like a solid splash. That's another 10 grams of fat. So all of a sudden, she thought her meal contained 14 grams of fat and 294 calories, but it actually ends up having an additional 48 grams of fat via the cooking oil, the butter, and the cream, because fats have 9 calories per gram. That's an extra 432 calories. So the 294 calorie breakfast ends up being 726 calories just because she added almost 50 grams of fat on top of her base breakfast. So a couple hours have gone by, it's snack time and Sash is peckish, so she has a handful of mixed nuts. And let's say it's conservatively 2/3 of a cup. That's another 47 grams of fat and a total of 536 calories. That probably took her all of, 3 or 4 minutes to eat? Just like that, and another 500 plus calories down the hatch, because again, fats, they are calorie dense. Now, it's lunchtime, and Sash heads out for a burrito bowl at Chipotle, let's say. She skips a tortilla and the rice because she's keeping things low carb, and she goes with a chicken bowl with guacamole, black beans, some cheese, sour cream, and a bunch of veg. This meal has 35 grams of protein, not bad, 43 grams of carbs, again, not too high, and 44 grams of fat. That's a good amount of fat. That tallies up to a total of 720 calories. Now, let's be super optimistic and say her Chipotle bowl filled her up all the way to dinner. So she didn't even snack on crackers or hummus or some sort of granola bar or even more mixed nuts. And now it's dinner time and she's going to do a salmon, rice, and veggie stir-fry dish. Let's say she baked the salmon with just some calorie-free spices, cooked up the rice on its own in a rice cooker, and stir-fried the veggies on the stove. She probably added a couple tablespoons of oil to the veggies, so that's 28 grams of fat. And then when she mixed the salmon and the rice in with the veggies, she's like, you know what, this needs some more texture, so she adds some coconut milk. Now, let's be conservative and say she only added a half a cup of coconut milk. That's another 28 grams of fat. There's also fat in the salmon. So let's say she went with 6 ounces of salmon, that's another 22 grams of fat. And then a cup of rice has basically 0 fat, so she's good there. Between the salmon, the oil used to cook the veggies, and the coconut milk, she's got 78 grams of fat in dinner alone. 78 grams of fat is 702 calories, and that's not even counting the protein or carbs in that meal. Let's be even more conservative and say she didn't have another bite of food after dinner. No treat, no chocolate, no dessert, no wine, not even popcorn. The total calories for the day are protein, 108 grams, carbs, 130 grams. I'd consider that low carb. Fats, 231 grams. That is definitely high fat. This is a grand total of 3,031 calories. I just wanted to take a really brief pause on the action here. If you're interested in personalized one-on-one nutritional coaching and or workout programming with me, you can head on over to n1fitness.com/coaching or just click the link in the show notes below. All right, back to the episode. So this is essentially a lower carb approach with a whole bunch of healthy fat sprinkled in. But man, do the calories add up quick from those fats. Now, don't get me wrong, lower carb, higher fat approaches can work for folks. I've personally taken this approach with clients and had lots of success. However, the fats still need to be in check because as you can see from this daily example of 3 meals and 1 snack with 0 nighttime munchies, over 3,000 calories. Also, I'd say this was a generally healthy day of eating, right? So even when you're making healthful choices, calories still stack up like crazy. So what do I recommend you do with this information? If you're thinking, I'm fairly aware of my carb intake, I don't eat lots of pasta or rice or potatoes, but I'm still having trouble losing weight, track your fat intake for 7 days. MyFitnessPal or something like it makes it really easy and convenient to account for all of your food because if you're tracking the fat, you might as well log your protein and carb intake too. Things to look out for. So be sure to track everything because you don't get bonus points for not accounting for things. You just get inaccurate information. And when I say everything, I mean cooking oils, handfuls of nuts, nut butters, butter itself, sauces, salad dressings, cheeses, avocado, cream or milk in your coffee, fats and protein sources like salmon and grainier cuts of red meat. Also restaurant meals, right? Because they're notoriously high in fat. I think you might be surprised by how many calories you're taking in, but more specifically, how many calories you're ingesting from fat itself. My clients tell me all the time, man, I find keeping my protein and carbs in check fairly easy. However, I'm really being more mindful of my fat intake because they add up so quick. Now, I want to give you 5 actionable takeaways that you can implement and best case scenario, not even notice all that much of a difference as far as how your food tastes while still lowering the calorie load. So the first one is use leaner cuts of protein. So subbing things like chicken thighs with the skin on for chicken breast, subbing ground beef for extra lean ground beef or even extra lean ground turkey, using things like egg whites instead of egg yolks, or at least having, say, a few yolks and then making up the difference with egg whites. These little substitutions really add up. Number 2, cooking oils. Skip them. Use something like a Pam spray and this will reduce your calories via oil a ton. Also, you can pick up a non-stick pan or two and keep in mind that when you're cooking something that already has a lot of water in it or some fat in it, you probably don't need to put any oil or even Pam down at all. So for example, if you're using a non-stick pan and cooking things like frozen fish, lean ground turkey, extra lean ground beef, the water in the fish and the fat that's already in the ground turkey and the extra lean ground beef will coat the pan for you, so you don't need to use any additional oils or the Pam spray. Number 3, subbing snacks like mixed nuts for whole fruit will really save you calories because nuts are so calorie dense, and relatively speaking, the whole fruit is going to leave you feeling a lot more full when you equate for calorie load between the two. Number 4, use lower calorie sauces. So for example, if you're going to use something like coconut milk, you can use a reduced fat version to lower the calories. All types of mustards are great for different things. Soy sauce is awesome. Hot sauces, different vinegars are very low in calories. So experiment with all of those. Number 5 is low-fat dairy products. So go for 0% plain Greek yogurt and then add your own fruit to sweeten it up versus something like full-fat vanilla sugar-sweetened yogurt. The difference in calories is going to be huge here. Not to mention when you add all sorts of funky flavors, you're just more likely to overeat it. So this sub is beneficial twofold. The nutrition industry is cyclical by nature, and right now sugar and carbs have been heavily demonized, and there's been a serious push for healthy fats, and by all means, watch your sugar intake, that's smart, but letting your fat intake fly under the radar is going to leave you with subpar results or no results at all. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you found it useful, I'd really appreciate it if you left a review on your podcast player of choice, because that way we can reach more folks with this information. Again, if you're interested in personalized one-on-one nutritional coaching and or workout design with me, you can head on over to n1fitness.com/coaching or just click the link in the show notes below. Follow me up on Instagram at N1Fitness and friend me on Facebook at Marcus Sadu. Thanks so much for listening, and I will catch you on the next episode. See ya.